Committee, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Council President Shannon Hardin. I want to remind everyone that this hearing is currently live on YouTube and Facebook, and is also live and being recorded for rebroadcast on CTV, Columbus's Government Television Channel 3. The rebroadcast schedule is available at www.columbus.gov. Before we get started today, I want to acknowledge the atrocity that's occurred in Texas. Basically, one of the reasons why we're here today is to avoid situations like we've seen in so many instances around this country. And it's saddening and really, unfortunately, not shocking anymore to see the loss that's occurred in Texas. And so I would like to ask everyone to take a moment of silence in honor of those victims. Thank you very much. As we move forward into this hearing, I'd like to thank and welcome to our presenters today. Joining us from the Department of Public Safety, we have Deputy Director George Speaks, Legislation Manager, is that your title now? Legislation Manager Grant Ames. We have Group Violence Intervention Manager Shuba Limbic. Did I say that okay? Am I close enough? You can help me with this one when it's your turn. From the division, we have certainly Chief Elaine Bryant, Assistant Chief Lashana Potts, Assistant Chief Greg Bodker, Deputy Chief Smith Weir. And then from Columbus Public Health, we have Assistant Health Commissioner Anita Clark, Section Chief in Neighborhood Social Services Marianne Stuckey. Thank you. I got to work on the pronunciation, excuse me. And from the Department of Columbus Recs and Parks, we have Director Benita Reese, Interventionist Tanisha Calhoun. The purpose of this hearing is to review the violence intervention programs and services provided by various City of Columbus departments and divisions. We will hear from program coordinators managing each program and learn more about past successes and future planning. In recent years, Columbus has seen an uptick in violence throughout the city. City Council and Mayor Ginther took to the streets to hear from residents, community leaders, safety professionals, and many nonprofit organizations to bring everyone together to discuss how we can end the violence. In October 2020, Columbus City Council contracted with criminologist David Kennedy, director of the National Network of Safe Communities at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York, New York. Whose programming has been successful in reducing violence in other communities. In March of 2021, after reviewing the final report provided by David Kennedy and the National Network of Safe Communities, Columbus announced several programs aimed at reducing crime and violence in the city of Columbus, which we will hear more about today. I would like to give the opportunity for Council President Hardin to say a few words.
Thank you, Chair Remy, for hosting this hearing. Certainly want to thank the administration for making yourselves available, but certainly for the work that you are doing. We all know that summer is approaching, and as we typically see potential spikes in violence, to know that we have a fully functioning, fully coordinated, strategic plan for gang violence intervention is a top priority for this council. And so we look forward to this hearing today. As a quick history, and to the best of my going down memory lane, been around just long enough. We started a lot of this work in the summer of 2010 or 2011. It was the summer I was a new staff person for then former Mayor Mike Coleman. Some of this work was kind of newer to us in the Midwest, but other communities, specifically, I remember going out to LA where they had a program called the Los Angeles Gang Reduction and Youth Violence Prevention Program. We took components of that program 10 or 12 years ago, starting with Recreation and Parks, and developed a program. It was never perfect to get started because we were pulling together and getting started, but we worked really hard. But we, I think now, believe in this intervention, that intervention works, and believe that by using the manpower of different departments, from health to recreation and parks to public safety and external partners, that we can reduce crime, specifically focused on individuals in communities that need a different touch. And so I'm looking forward to hearing our progress over those 10, 12 years. I'm glad that we are investing time and money in new strategies and have the support of external folks to make this happen. So look forward to this hearing. Have several questions, but look forward to hearing from the different departments on how we're working together and what our strategy is going forward, specifically for this summer. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Council President Harden. As he mentioned, I mean, this is an integral part of our overall plan and the push that council has with the mayor. Certainly, you saw our $16 million investment last week in youth programming. This is a key component of it. You saw the legislation last night to make sure that our parks are safe in coordination with the Division of Police. And so, you know, we're trying to look at this from a holistic perspective, and it's not any one big plan. It's all the little things that make it up to really make a difference. And so, very excited to hear the update tonight. So, without further ado, I will turn the floor over to our first presenters, which is the Department of Public Safety. Deputy Director Speaks. The floor is yours. I'll let you introduce your speakers as you move through the process.
President Harden, Chairman Rooney, thank you so much for hosting this hearing, and thank you for your strong support of these violence intervention programs. Chairman Remy, as you said, these programs are a key component of our multi-pronged, holistic approach to address violence in Columbus. My colleagues and I will specifically address our group violence intervention program. And I would also like to briefly note that Director Clark sends his regrets for not being able to attend today. So GVI, or group violence intervention, it's a core empirical finding that high-risk individuals who are associated with gangs, street groups, and social networks typically represent only a very small percentage of a city's population. Yet, the same individuals are associated with an overwhelming percentage of violent, serious crime. Now well understood, GVI is an evidence-based framework for violence reduction, and it's been implemented in dozens of cities across the U.S. and even internationally. It has repeatedly demonstrated that violence can be significantly reduced when a partnership of community members, law enforcement, and social service agencies directly engage with those small number of individuals who are associated with this serious violence. So here are some of the vital community moral voices, with a technical glitch, of course. Of our moral voice, credible messengers who are working with us to stop the violence in Columbus.
Hello, Columbus. This is Donald Soule with Community for New Direction.
Hello, my name is Bishop Harold Rayford, the senior pastor of the Church of Christ of the Apostolic Faith right here in Columbus.
Hello, Columbus. My name is Charles Hill, Vice President of Columbus Urban League.
Violence has been plaguing our city for too long. Here with the GVI model, we plan to increase the value of life and reduce the violence.
As a faith-based partner with the GVI initiative, we provide support and a safe place for members of our community.
I've been an intervention specialist for 4 years, building relationships with individuals ages 14 to 23. Being in their life is very impactful. I'm able to give real life events. I'm able to be relatable. I'm also able to tell my story.
We believe that connecting our clients with community resources in a timely manner and while reducing violence and providing them with a good quality of life is important to the clients that we serve.
We believe together we can see a reduction in violence in our city.
In our efforts, we will continue this endless fight against gang violence in our communities.
Our city can't wait. Let's make a difference today, Columbus.
Our city cannot wait. Let's go, Columbus. Let's make it happen.
Our city can't wait. Let's make a difference today, Columbus.
Columbus cannot afford for us to wait. Let's make a difference.
Very good. Grant. So the aim of our GVI strategy is to reduce serious violence by offering group members an honorable exit from committing acts of violence and to provide a supported path for those who want to change away from violence. The support provided will hopefully not only improve the lives of the individual, but will also increase the quality of life in our neighborhoods and throughout our city. Learning from the experiences of other jurisdictions, we have spent significant time in carefully building a strong foundation for success. Project Manager Shuba Limbach will review the 3 essential pillars of this foundation.
A key component of GVI, and this foundation has been laid over the past several months, has been the partnership. GVI is unique in that it really brings together everything we have in Columbus to bear in terms of reducing group violence and supporting individuals who engage in group violence into productive paths in society. So the key component of this partnership implementation includes the community, social service agencies, and law enforcement. Let me detail what that really means in terms of the specific components of GVI. So we have a core GVI team comprised of myself as a project manager. We have a resource coordinator who will be joining our team shortly. There's an outreach coordinator and a faith-based coordinator that will really be kind of the core team. In addition, one of the things that we've been able to bring that makes the Columbus model really unique is a law enforcement liaison. So we have a law enforcement liaison, and that person provides a critical role. He's a former officer, Officer Tommy Page, and he plays a critical role in helping streamline communication so that we can constantly have information sharing between and across CPD, the GVI team, and our violence intervention contract folks. And so what are the components of GVI as we move forward with implementation? It's really about bringing those partnerships to bear to deliver key messages to group members coupled with coordinated action. So what does that mean? That means letting group members know from moral voices in the community, your community, our community, does not accept your actions. You are hurting our community. It involves and strongly includes the faith-based community to really reinforce that message of even if you are engaged in group violence, you are still a part of our community and we're here to support you and to help you with that lasting behavioral change so we can stop the violence. And the faith community really emphasizes that aspect of we care for you and we care for you deeply. We want to help you stay safe and we want to improve your quality of life. The social service sector here in Columbus, and we know we have a resource-rich city, their message in all of this, their work in all of this really centers on we want to help you and we will do whatever we can to help you for as long as you need it. And so what does that translate into? What does that mean? That means being creative in terms of the social service network. It may mean if we have traditionally programs that are time limited and typically serve individuals for 3 months, we may have folks, group members, who need 4 months or 6 months or less. And so really being creative with that aspect, but really bringing to bear all that we have to think out of the box, which I know is cliche, but to think creatively about what can we do to really create lasting behavioral change, which is really what this is all about. And then finally, critical component of this is the law enforcement and criminal justice system. And what role do they play? I think it's important to recognize, as Paul Smith from the National Network of Safe Communities consistently reminds us, police officers are a part of the community too. Law enforcement is a part of the community too. And so how can we all work in partnership? How can we walk this walk together to emphasize that we need you to stop shooting? We want you to stop shooting. We will support you to stop shooting. But in the event that you are unable to do so, we will have to bring the full attention of the law to your activities. And so those are kind of the key messages that represent the core components. And for the past several months, the Department of Public Safety, the GVI team, and when I say team here, I really mean very broadly. Yes, there are some staff and some contractors, but this is really an effort that's going to take this entire community, and that takes time to kind of pull the community together. And so that's been what's underway. So what does this really translate into in terms of day-to-day action? We will talk about that next. There are two critical components to the GVI model. One is the custom notification, which I'm going to talk about first, and then another is the call-in. So what is a custom notification? That is a very fancy way of saying we will show up at the door of group members who've been identified in partnership with the community and in partnership with law enforcement. We will show up on your porch to tell you that we are here to support you, we want you to change, and we are willing to help you create that lasting behavioral change. And so what that means is bringing together law enforcement, the faith-based community, the moral voice, and kind of that resource coordinator to be on the porch, as Director Clark often describes it, to really send that message of we are here, we are all in this together as a community, and we know you want to live just as much as the rest of us. And so how can we work together? What resources do you need? And when I say you here, I don't just mean that group member, but what does your family need? What does that household need so that we can help you become a productive citizen so that you stop the shooting? That's really what it's about. And so it's an opportunity to bring that social influence to bear, but also create that lasting behavioral change. Call-ins take that custom notification to the next level. And so what is a call-in? A call-in is a gathering of approximately 30 group representatives. They've been identified as a result of what I like to describe as precision policing. So we are looking for those targeted individuals that Deputy Director Speaks referenced who have that history of significant involvement in terms of violence, and bringing together those individuals into a neutral space to hear from the faith community, to hear from their communities, to hear from those affected by violence. One of the key components of a call-in is having someone be that voice of pain to really make that impact of that violence real. And so it really pulls together all of those components along with city leadership. So for example, at the call-in we went to in Detroit, the mayor was there to outline and describe the vision for the city. What could be possible if we all, and when I say we here, the group members in that room too, if we all walked that path together to create that quality of life and that incredible vision for the city. And coupled with that is we're not going to leave you hanging. We are going to support you as you make that change with resources. And what do I mean? And I keep talking about resources. So what do I mean with resources? It could be anything from helping you secure a driver's license, which you may need to get transportation. You may need that driver's license for identification purposes to get a job. Something that seems so basic. You may need some legal help. Maybe you have some child support issues that you need settled. That can make the difference between whether you are engaged in violence or whether you are a productive member of society. Employment skills, housing, all of those basic needs, not just for the group member involved, but for those who live with them, for those who they consider family. And so those resources are also available and brought to bear at the call-in. And just to give you an example, at a call-in that was held in Detroit in fall of 2021, out of the 24 group members invited to the call-in, 19 of them committed to changing their lives and becoming part of the effort to walk away from that life of violence. So it's pretty impactful and pretty powerful. So what is the most critical thing, and I am going to keep talking about this a lot, but what is the most critical thing about GVI is this partnership with the community. And it is about bringing everything and understanding that group violence isn't a public safety problem, it isn't a police problem, it isn't a city problem, it is an everybody problem. And we all need to work on it together across traditional and non-traditional stakeholders. So it really involves thinking creatively and bringing together partners that may not typically have been in the same room, or partners that may not typically have worked together in terms of addressing the issues going on in our city, and specifically group violence. Why is community engagement important? Why is this community partnership important? Because when people in someone's life denounce gun violence and encourage non-violent conflict resolution, that matters. Those informal social influences really matter. We know that. And so that's something that can't always be the role of systems or agencies. It's important to recognize that there are community members, grass tops and grassroots, that can play that important social influence role, and we need them at the table. We need to engage them. Another core component of GVI is this idea of legitimacy. We need to support law enforcement who are a part of our community, and to really recognize that they are a legitimate resource in terms of safety, and we need to think of them as partners with us in the community and in everything that we do, and that laws will be applied fairly. At the crux, what do we all want? What does law enforcement want? What do neighborhoods want? What do we all want? We all really have one goal, and that's to be safe, alive, and free. And at the end of the day, GVI brings all of us together to work collaboratively and creatively. And let's face it, sometimes that can be a little uncomfortable as we're figuring things out, which is what we're doing now. But at the end of the day, that lets us all come together so that we can create a city where we can be safe, alive, and free. So let me dive into a few more specifics. So when we talk about the GVI community engagement strategy, and I know I've spoken about that broadly, what are some of those components? And I'm going to start off right now by saying this slide includes a lot of those components, but this is where we have that opportunity to really think deeply about who can be at this table, who can walk this walk with us, and who can show up on that porch when we need them to. And so that includes traditional civic and community associations, so everything from the faith-based community to our schools, to our neighborhood commissions, nonprofit organizations to support this effort with housing, employment, job training, and basic needs. The community at large, again, going back to the importance of that community voice through public engagement, volunteerism. We need mass communications and public relations to convince group members that we want a vision for this city that is safe, that has all of us alive, and that has all of us free. And then finally, the justice system also plays a critical role in this as partners, all the way from city, county, state, and federal legislative bodies down to the Division of Police, Department of Corrections, probation, parole, prosecutors, and the judiciary. So this really represents an incredibly wide breadth of our community in terms of coming together around that common message of creating a safe community for all of us. And so one of the things that's been underway, and this is just an example of some of the asset mapping that we've done in a neighborhood, but really looking at how can we pull together everything that Columbus has to bear as we move forward with the implementation of custom notifications and call-ins. And so I like to liken the work that GVI has been doing thus far to almost an iceberg, where there's a small component, about 1/3 of the iceberg is above water, and that really represents what you might see visibly in the community. But over the past several months, there's been a significant amount of groundwork laid with respect to developing these partnerships, with doing things like asset mapping, and also in providing the training and technical assistance so that we can do this correctly.
So we are being guided in our efforts by two nationally acclaimed organizations. First, criminologist David Kennedy is among the nation's most respected researchers in the field of modern policing, and has been for over 20 years, since the mid-90s, when, if you recall, he was the chief architect of Boston's Operation Ceasefire. His group, the National Network for Safe Communities, again, is highly acclaimed for the work not only in this country, but they also have started international work. NNSC also works with Detroit Ceasefire, that has been nationally acclaimed. Again, we are just so fortunate in being guided with our efforts from these, in gaining the expertise from these two nationally acclaimed organizations.
And just to give an example of that ongoing training effort, from May 9th through May 11th, the GVI team, and again, when I say team here, it's not just the staff working on this, it's also Columbus Urban League staff, it's also Community for New Directions, etc. It's a broad team of outreach folks, along with the Columbus Division of Police. We all went to Detroit, where we received training, and we actually had the opportunity to attend both a call-in rehearsal as well as an actual call-in, to actually see the impact and to develop from that planning for how we can implement such a call-in here in Columbus as well. In addition, the Columbus Division of Police had the opportunity to observe a shooting review, which is a key component of the GVI model with respect to custom notifications and call-ins. Some key takeaways from there. Number one, and I think most importantly, information must flow freely, constantly, and consistently between the community and law enforcement, understanding that our shared goal is not just stopping the shooting, but that we are all safe, alive, and free. Another key takeaway is that this model works because it's not about asking group members to change or threatening them, but really focusing in on how can we support what you need on an individual basis and with your family so that we can create lasting behavioral change. Creating behavioral change is not easy to do by any means, and it needs to be individualized and targeted, and this really enables us to do that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Deputy Director Speaks and Ms. Lembach, for that great overview of the GVI model and how it works. My name is Grant Ames. I'm our legislative manager at the Department of Public Safety, and I'm here to talk about another important pillar of this work, and that's showing our work, for lack of a better term, but it's collecting and analyzing the data that we'll be utilizing throughout this program, and using that information that we're collecting to improve it and make sure that we're connecting with the right folks and making sure that we're moving forward in a way that is actively progressing toward reducing violence in the community. So we know how important documentation is going to be to proving the effectiveness of this model and identifying the trends that could help us support those connected with the GVI program and the community as a whole. Based on the guidance from Progressive Possibilities, as we just talked about, we've developed an intake and contact tracking tool that will allow our outreach workers and our interventionists to input data in real time They'll be able to do it in the fields, either on those doorsteps or as they're connecting with young people throughout the community from their cell phone. They'll be able to fill out an intake form, and it'll fill out a spreadsheet that our GVI folks will be able to review on a weekly basis or even a daily basis. I know that you all are meeting in that frequency. This tool will help us collect information about the individuals that we're connecting with, but also the risk and protection factors that contribute to levels of violence that we're seeing for those individuals. What I mean by risk and protection factors, as social psychologists have described those as a litany of things, but the ones that we're really focused on are those negative influences in young people's lives, the access to resources, specifically those basic needs, food, shelter, healthcare. Those basic needs are really things that can help folks take that step away from a life of crime and a life of violence because they feel like they're supported in a different way. And then finally, that step is connecting with them with an educational institution and connecting them with employment ultimately, and keeping them engaged and keeping them involved in other activities away from the violence and those other influences that are involved in their life. We strongly believe that if we're able to alleviate the impacts of these risk factors, we can show positive results in reducing violence for the individuals that we're going to be connecting with, as well as the community as a whole, working through those individuals and the compounding effect of that. Having these strong practices in place to monitor our engagements with community members will allow the data to tell the story on how the GVI model is impacting and preventing potential violence throughout the community. And with that, I will turn it back over to Deputy Director Speaks to talk about some next steps as we move forward with the model.
So if there's one thing I would ask you to take away from this hearing, it is the word collaboration. Our anti-violence programs, our APPS program, Columbus Public Health, Urban League, C&D, and our team in public safety start the day off with a group call. Coordination of efforts are now taking place, which are leading to greater synergies and a safer Columbus. Likewise, both the National Network and Progressive Possibilities are providing essential training and instruction to all of our partners. For example, as Shuba mentioned in April, we had Progressive Possibilities here in Columbus, and the focus was call-ins. A couple weeks ago, all traveled to Detroit, where call-ins were the focus. We have several more trainings in the very near future. And again, all of this work is culminating in June and August, or later this summer, as we officially begin and carry out the work that's previously done with respect to our beginning our custom notifications and our call-ins. So in the end, or in summary, we thank you for this opportunity to summarize our group violence intervention program and our plans going forward.
Thank you very much, Deputy Director. To start off, we'll ask some questions. Tell us a little bit, this has been transitioned, the GVI department under public safety. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about that transition process, when it began, where you're at today. I mean, obviously we've heard the presentation, but just talk about why there was a need to move from Rex and Parks over to public safety, for instance.
Grant, if you could go back to our timeline. So in March, with the assistance of City Council, we put our contracts with our partners all under one department, that's public safety. So we now work with the Urban League, C&D, our APPS program, and again, I know that is leading to greater synergies and coordination of efforts that simply had not taken place before. So once again, the key word, coordination.
And where can residents go learn more about these programs?
Well, for group violence intervention in general, I would suggest the John Kennedy site at the National Network. There's a great history beginning with the ceasefire in Boston in the 90s that kind of updates you. We are following, again, that model, but with the help of Progressive Possibilities in Detroit, we are tailoring that to Columbus. As Grant mentioned, we are putting together some reporting mechanisms. So I believe by the end of the year, we'll have some reports to council and to the public that will show our work and, quite frankly, being able to hold us and our partners greater accountable for the dollars that you have generously provided.
Are there any plans for the department to put together a resource page on the website?
There is now.
Okay, well, so that's kind of my question.
But we're certainly glad to send to you. We have met with dozens and dozens of community partners, and we're certainly happy to share a list with you. And that's one of the things that we've been working on for the last month is, again, building that core of community.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, is there a website today that the residents can go to see these lists of resources that have been compiled with the division?
We don't have one yet, no.
Okay, and so my question is, is the plan to put something together so we can say, go to columbus.gov/GBI and you can find these resources and what we're doing all together on the website?
So let me back up a step.
Okay.
So again, this effort is focused on those core individuals, the few individuals who are causing the great violence. So the question becomes, where do we get information as to whom to focus? So that is done through shooting reviews, our community partners. So that's the folks we're working with to identify those most vulnerable in the community that needs this intervention. So it's really not a public calling us up and saying, I need this resource.
I guess my point is, you just gave a presentation that is really tailored to the public, right? I mean, it was a great presentation. I'm not questioning that. How do we convey that message? Because we, as elected officials, get asked these questions. What are you doing in GBI space? And I can't just say, well, go to I'm challenging the department to put together a resource page so that I can tell them as an elected official, the people that I represent, this is where you need to go.
Heard loud and clear, and it will be
Thank
done,
you.
sir.
Appreciate it. And so that leads to my next question. If there's anything that residents can do to assist with curbing, so again, we're talking about the programming that you're doing, but, if somebody's out there listening right now, are there things, how do I tell them how to get involved and what they can do from their own front porch in their own neighborhood?
Thank you for that question. I think the idea of creating a resource page where people can go to learn a little bit more about GVI is a great idea. I do want to emphasize that GVI is part of a whole strategy. So I think that's important to remember, and that GVI is really about precision policing. Having said that, I do think what would be extremely helpful is we have folks out on the ground every single day in communities. We have Community for New Directions, we have apps, we have the Urban League, we also have the Columbus Division of Police. And I think the more information that can be shared by residents to help kind of inform as to how we can best target that precision policing in terms of identifying those group members is very critical and a great resource. And so some of the ways that we could kind of engage residents in this effort is, again, when they see someone from Community for New Directions or the Columbus Urban League or apps, they're identifiable. And to be able to really connect with them and say, hey, let me tell you what's going on or what I've been seeing or what my concerns are as residents. So that's definitely one way. I think another thing I want to kind of elevate is that just this past Saturday on May 21st, we had our first Healing Columbus Trauma Conference, and that was open to all residents. And it would be wonderful to see the attendance grow as we do those types of events, because it's a great place for residents to kind of understand what is actually happening in terms of the city and GVI, as well as how to address those types of issues in their neighborhoods and to whom they can turn to for resources and partnerships. And that's also a great example, I believe, of bringing together all of the resources and many of the resources we have in the city. So this conference this past Saturday, it was hosted by Pastor Rayford. And so really engaging the faith-based community. There were other members of the faith-based community there. We had some great representation from residents. We had representation from partners like Columbus Public Health, The Ohio State University Wexner Center, Nationwide Children's Hospital. In addition, attendees included a wide variety of residents, both local to kind of where the church is located in Landon, but really much more broadly as well. So I think there are ways that as we continue to evolve and grow, there will be opportunities for residents to be involved in addition to that resource page.
By the way, I had the opportunity to attend. It was an excellent, seminar. I think I applaud the department for putting that together. It was, I look forward to many more and the opportunity to get more people there, because I think the value of the resources all put together and the discussion that took place was really something special. And so thank you for that. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. If someone's currently part of a gang or they're involved in like illegal activity and they want to get out, how do we talk to those people? I understand we've got people on the streets, but again, you could run across those people in the course of conversation. Where do we send them? How do we tell them about resources that are available?
So if someone's currently involved in a gang, again, many of our outreach workers, and I cannot speak highly enough about kind of the CND, CUL, and the APS outreach workers. Many of these outreach workers know those group members, and so that's a great place to link, honestly, immediately for resources and support. In addition to that, I want to again emphasize that law enforcement knows these group members know law enforcement. That's another opportunity to also reach out for help. And furthermore, I will also say one of the things, without going into too much detail about the call-ins, is at each call-in there are a certain number of individuals who may be kind of required to attend as part of their probation or parole. But in Detroit and in other jurisdictions, law enforcement can invite group members to attend who might be interested in learning more and in learning about the resources. So there are a couple of different ways that gang members can also reach out for assistance.
Thank you. Council President Harden.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Limbach, and thank you, Director Speaks. To Chair Remy's comments, it was a very substantive presentation. A lot of my questions are, I guess, really around just clarity and just trying to understand where we are and where we're going. What stage of implementation are we in for the plan?
Again, as shown by the timeline earlier, we are set to formally begin both our custom notifications and our call-ins this summer.
Okay, so if we have a person, a group member that is going to receive the services of precision policing, that type of work starts this summer.
Well, let me say, this has been ongoing with our partners for a number of years. As you know, you'd mentioned before, partnering with APS, the Urban League, C&D. They have been doing great work for a number of years. We have now, since March, we're coordinating this. And again, I think a synergy there. Likewise, our own group has been building our team and has been doing interventions. And we could give you a number of examples of those just this weekend, for example. But the official call-ins and custom notifications will begin June and August.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I've always wanted out of our strategy was coordination and collaboration. I think that's critically important because of the asset mapping that Ms. Limbach did. There's so many folks who care, who are working, truthfully, who we are funding to do this work, to make sure that we are talking and coordinating and have a unified strategy. One of the general questions, because I'm trying to understand, and I almost for myself, but really for the viewing audience, if you have an individual, what are the different paths to enter the supportive services of our intervention work? And does that mean case management? What is our capacity for case management? And down the road of that question is, for the entire strategy, how many folks do we pay to be quote unquote intervention workers, both internally and maybe through our partners?
So let me begin. So first of all, it's working with police and our interventionists to identify those folks that are most in need of intervention.
And so how does that happen, Director?
Shooting reviews is one
Okay.
way. Second, just learning from our experts who have been in the field for years. as
Maybe
to
through
this
like
person-
C&D or through the apps
Yes,
workers, so they will
exactly.
say, young person X
Needs assistance.
needs assistance, and they call who? Or how does the chain, how does it work?
Go ahead.
So one of the things that we have already implemented that I want to speak to that I think is incredibly I think it's incredible, is we have daily 9 a.m. meetings.
I love that.
On these meetings, we discuss shootings that took place. We talk about hotspots, although I'm not really a fan of that term. We talk about areas for greater attention. So for example, we may talk about a specific area of the city or a building or something like that where there needs to be some kind of added focus on the part of interventionists and outreach. And who is on those daily calls, and I think that speaks to a little bit about kind of the coordination and sharing information. On those daily calls, we have Community for New Directions, we have the Urban League, we have apps. And when I say those entities, it doesn't just mean one representative from each. We often have several of the interventionists on, and we discuss during those sessions how and effectively, how we can be most effective and how we can be strategic about to use those resources. And in addition to that, there's also information that is shared that we glean from the Columbus Division of Police. Thankfully to the Division of Police, yet again, for all of their support of this program. So it's really bringing all of this together. And so yes, we will be starting custom notifications, and yes, we will be starting call-ins this summer. Having said that, there is already an incredible amount of work that is starting to take place, and that we are starting to see some of those results kind of happening.
And the answer to the second part of your question, I believe that C&D has 5 interventionists. I believe that currently 4, and I believe they're hiring 1 additional. And I believe the Urban League has 5. And then Shuba, if you want to talk about your staff.
So on our team, we have Lundell Towns. He is our faith-based outreach coordinator. We have Sean Smith, who is our community relations coordinator. And we have me. We will be adding a resource coordinator. And we have Tommy Page as our law enforcement liaison. And that's kind of our core team.
But we would also then include the apps intervention workers as well,
Absolutely.
that are housed in rec and parks.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. And as and health has a part of the intervention strategy as well, I'm assuming.
Yes, and so the department, so from a microcosmic view, we have these daily calls, lots of consistent shared information that includes Parks and Recs, huge partnership there. Director Reese is often on those daily meetings, and we really have a lot of that case level, if you will, kind of information sharing discussion, as well as kind of those neighborhood areas where we know we need to be more strategic and more effective in having more interventionists, or maybe it's an event, maybe it's a festival, et cetera. In addition to that, from a more macrocosmic view, there's also a lot of great partnership between a variety of the city departments and agencies. So for example, Care Coalition was a huge part of the planning and the work for that conference that we had on Saturday. And so we foresee continuing to develop and build those relationships as we move forward with call-ins and custom notifications, because as I keep emphasizing, this is not something we can do alone, and it's going to require all of us coming together. And so there will be kind of increased ways to do that as we move forward.
Awesome. So as we talk about the I was about to call you Grant, Mr. Ames, public safety, was talked about the tracking community contacts and the tracking component that all of our interventionists can use. Am I articulating that correctly? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, sir.
So as we build that out, how are we Is that something that's available now to all of our intervention workers to be able
Yes,
to?
that's something that we have available, and they'll be using. They're going to be, so they'll document every community contact with someone that they've been assigned. So
Okay.
if we have an individual, and I'm sure we talk about this a little bit with the meetings that they have daily. If we have an individual of concern, they're going to have a specific person that's responsible for coordinating with them, whether they're involved in case management or whether it's a little bit more informal and they're just connecting with them and making sure that they're moving in a direction away from those negative influences and more toward a positive space for their lives. So they'll be able to document every single contact that they'll have with that person. And that'll help us show progress along the way for each of those individuals. So if person A, we met with them originally, they're involved in a group, we know that they're either involved in illicit drug activity, probably not employed, may be a dropout from high school. We're collecting all of that information on the front end and getting all that intake, and then that will help us tailor the response on how we'll be working with that person to address the concerns that they have. The Urban League and Community for New Direction have done a great job with this in the past, and we're kind of plugging in our help and our connections with community partners in a way, and broadening the resources that are available to them. Right now, they kind of focus in the resources that they offer within their organizations. We're going to spread that out and allow them more access to organizations citywide to be able to connect into and plug into. And then hopefully we'll be able to show that progress of reducing those risk factors and turning them into protection factors. We started with person A here, and now person A has their GED, has their CDL, is moving in a different direction, and we're able to show that pattern of growth for them.
I love that. I mean, that's why I zeroed into that component, because to me, that sounds like something that really can be cross-departmental. It can be internal and external. It would help us to answer a question, how many folks can we track at one point? Because I'm still having another question. We invest these dollars to serve these many individuals in the community. So what is our capacity to do case management with our external partners? Because at some point, as the legislative branch, you may ask us for more resources, because I'm counting 15 intervention workers, 5, the Urban League, 5 at C&D, and, well, more than that, potentially 5 that work in public safety, and some in rec and parks. And so I would, and this
You're reading our minds, President. That's exactly why, one of the reasons I should say, that we want to be held accountable and to track, which I believe will be great results.
Appreciate it. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. We appreciate the information. I'm going to now turn it over to Chief Bryant and her team to talk a little bit more about how their programming intersects, with group violence intervention, and then also to give us some updates on things like safe streets. Assistant Chief Bodker.
Thank you very much, President Harden, Chair Remy. I'd like to remind both of you probably remember that focused deterrence and intervention is not new to Columbus Division of Police. For over a year, we worked on a program called Reroute. We worked closely with our partners seated behind me from Columbus Public Health, as well as Rex and Park and the APPS program, with some great success. When the Director's Office began to focus on GVI earlier this year, we bolstered some of our additional programs for violence intervention, and Deputy Chief Weir is going to talk about some of those programs that are ongoing.
Good evening. Thank you. Turn that on. Good evening. Thank you for having me. So we'll talk about some of our anti-violent crime initiatives with Division of Police, including the 2021 Reroute pilot project, and then we can talk about how that can work alongside and exist within the GVI framework. So before we get into the violent crime initiatives, we have to talk about where are we now, because it gives us a good snapshot of the issues that we're facing as a city and as a community. So May 24th, 2021, we were at 82 homicides. Of those at that time, on May 24th, we had solved 47% of them, and we had 631 felony assaults. That includes non-fatal shootings, stabbings, other assaults that constitute serious physical harm, but where the victim did not die. Today, exactly 1 year later, we are at 48 homicides. We've solved 52% year-to-date of 2022 cases. In addition, we've solved a series of other homicides from previous years, which brings our total clearance and total solve rate in 2022 to 77%. We've also had 481 felony assaults this year, year-to-date, with a 35.7% solve rate. Everyone knows that the vast majority of our homicides and our violent crime is carried out with a firearm. I think this illustration shows a good visual of how many firearms we're seizing throughout the city. 2017, 2018, 2019, mid-2000s, we see an increase in 20 and 21, even during the height of the pandemic, to over 3,000 guns seized in 2021. This year, year-to-date, as of May 10th, so as of 2 weeks ago, 1,134 firearms seized in the city of Columbus. I think that is a stark reminder of some of the issues we're facing, some of the battles that we're fighting in terms of the weapons possession, and then when conflicts and altercations arise on the street, the amount of people that are armed and that resort to gun violence. Since Chief Bryan and Chief Potts have been in Columbus, they brought and they started a series of enforcement operations called Operation Unity. Those basically flooded areas of need with uniform and plainclothes officers, and then provided wraparound services with our community partners as well. We've done 3 such operations in the city during 2021, which resulted in the 69 felony arrests, 37 misdemeanor arrests, 36 firearms seized, 11 stolen vehicles recovered, 101 warrants served, traffic citations. Those were on the Mideast side, the Hilltop and Linden area. Chief Bacher talked about the reroute project. It was a focused deterrence model of policing, very similar to some of the concepts that are being carried out through the Safety Director's Office with GVI. During the project, we worked with Columbus Public Health and Care Coalition and our partners at Parks and Rec through apps. We had basically two prongs to the model. There was the referral, where we referred individuals, at-risk individuals, for services, and then there was the investigation and enforcement side. During the pilot project, 86 individuals were referred to our partners. They were able to make contact with 59 of those individuals. Of those 59 contacted, 49 accepted some kind of case management service or some kind of social service help, to better their lives. For those that were deemed too violent, or for those that refused to accept help, or we during the investigation and enforcement phase of that project, we had 46 arrests, 33 firearms seized, 3 stolen vehicles recovered, over 1,000 grams of fentanyl and heroin, 777 of meth, and we were able to locate 19 individuals wanted for questioning by our homicide detectives. So it was a very successful project that we look forward to combining with GVI. And so one, it tears down silos, and 2, we can take the best models, or we can take the best aspects of reroute, and we can fold that into GVI to make it more effective. Safe Streets has been our summer safety initiative for the past several years. Last year we had a very successful Safe Streets campaign, 159 community meetings, 181 community events, officers attended. Citywide, we made 70 felony arrests, 47 firearms seized, and 7 stolen vehicles recovered. The model is similar in the 2022 plan. They will work May 29th to July 30th. There will be teams on every zone in every neighborhood in the city. We will have foot patrols, bike patrols, and officers in cruisers. And there will be the continued emphasis on community engagement and data-driven policing. And then, as was discussed and last night, Operation Moonlight will be hitting our parks over the next 15 weekends. Proactive community center responses to street-level crime, related crime trends based on statistics, patterns of criminal activity, and identified community needs and concerns. Officers will patrol the city parks or high-traffic areas on foot and engage in citizens in a positive manner. They will also ensure that violence against another person or damage to property results in immediate police action. That is it for that. Obviously, we welcome any questions.
Sure thing. Can you talk about, I appreciate the insight and what you guys are doing, but also like programs like Safe Streets, to talk about how that initiative is also, part of this, and in my opinion anyway, at least, just getting people out on the streets to make them safer.
Sure. Also, as an aside, the director's office mentioned shooting reviews. That's not something that's new to us. We have formally changed the name to a shooting review, but that's where our detectives, our patrol officers, our partners, local, state, and federal, come together, and we talk about every shooting that has occurred over the last week. And we make links both forensically and physically to connect shootings that occurred. And so that will be rolled into GVI as well. Safe Streets, so the timeline that you see there really is in line with the contract, a 60-day temporary assignment, which will allow us to have volunteers that normally are working in cruisers, and it frees them up. It allows them the time to get out of their cruiser instead of going from call for service to call for service to call for service. Allows them to work on teams supervised by a sergeant in different zones of the city. It's split about 85% of that will be community relations and about 15% enforcement.
Council President.
Just a quick question. On one of the slides, you talked about the folks that you were able to refer to the departments. What are the characteristics of, how do you pick this person is a good fit to go through some external support work versus this person needs more traditional judicial system engagement?
Thank you. So it started with reroute. We would get together and we would talk about possible referrals. A lot of times we were going through the shooting reports, the non-fatal shooting reports, and we were talking about the victims. A lot of times when we look at non-fatal shootings, they tend to lead to further retaliation. So the question is how do we stop that cycle of violence? How do we stop that escalating, continuing cycle where one shooting begets another, and then it turns into a homicide? So one of the things that we tried to talk about was, is this victim somebody that is part of a group? Is this victim somebody that is going to try to is there a high risk of retaliatory violence out of this specific incident? We would talk about that internally at the shooting reviews, and then we would talk about it externally with our partners with Care Coalition and then at Parks and Rec. And if the consensus was that this person is somebody that we could reach out to, at that point, then we basically turned it over to them. During the course of our conversations, internally or externally, if we knew that this person was, let's say, a suspect in several violent crimes, if this person was somebody that the community thought was, a lot of times we would hear, people on the street say, this person's doing too much, this person is really out there causing a lot of violence in the community. At that time, a lot of times we would basically determine that that person should be investigated for their criminal activity and not somebody that would be referred for social services. And the one great thing that we found out during all that time, whether it was talking internally with our law enforcement partners, or whether it was talking externally to Parks and Rec, to APS, or to Care Coalition, was that we all know the same people. We know, the Kennedy theory about a very small group of people is responsible for a majority of the crime is absolutely true. It's something that we all know intrinsically when you're out in the community. But we found out during these conversations, we were all talking about the same individuals separately before we all kind of tore down the silos. And then when we got together, we realized we were all focusing on the same people because we know that they are, committing a large majority of the crimes. So that's kind of how that process worked. And as it evolves through the shooting reviews, that's how it'll be formalized through that.
And this might be a safety or police question. Does the age of a perpetrator or the age of a person who's involved, does that change how we route them? And does the judicial system play some role in that? Does anybody?
Well, with respect to the custom notifications and or call-ins, yes, if it's a juvenile, the parents will have to be there in order to proceed with a custom notification or a call-in. Other than that, it's sort of the same process, if you will, in terms of utilizing the community moral voice, the offer of the social services. It's the same sort of process. But if it's juvenile, the parent will have to be there.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation. Now we'll move on to Columbus Public Health and Assistant Health Commissioner Anita Clark. Welcome.
Thank you, President Harden, Chair Member Remy. I'm Anita Clark with Columbus Public Health, as Chair Remy had mentioned. I'm here today with my colleague, Marion Stuckey, and she's the Section Chief of our Neighborhood Social Services. And I really want to share our updates about violence prevention and intervention programs that are working to build resilient people and safer neighborhoods. But first, I must tell a story, and this is going to age me. So my story happened 27 years ago, and as I said, that just ages me right there. As a social worker with our first hospice program, I was involved in a random drive-by shooting on a porch as I was telling a mother about her last days and minutes with her daughter who was dying. And fortunately, no one was hit, but the neighbor was wise enough to push me down onto the porch. And when we looked up, it was about an inch above our head. All the bullets were, shot across the house. And I tell this story because it's personal to me. And I really, want everyone to know that. And I feel like it's now a passion that we need to do something. I mean, this has got to change, and it's been mentioned that our community, our village, it was mentioned last night, our village, is needed along with CPD, with Rec and Parks, with Columbus Public Health to make these changes. It's going to take all of us. So let's begin first with Neighborhood Social Services, which provides a continuum of critical services that intervene to disrupt and prevent violence. We know that unresolved trauma and social needs are major drivers of violence. The premise is that hurt people hurt people. And looking at violence as a public health issue, we'll come to understand that violence can increase when people are exposed to numerous risk factors, including trauma, stress, and poverty. We can go ahead to the next slide there, actually the next two. Oh, you have the clicker, okay. Sorry about that. I'm more of the number and money person, so of course I get that responsibility. This will be a major focus of work in our coming year. Our 2022 operating budget includes over $1.8 million to assist with violence and trauma interventions. Additionally, we were recently provided over $1.5 million from the American Rescue Plan dollars to expand our reroute, a collaboration with Columbus Rec and Parks and CPD, which has been mentioned already, and also to expand our Care Coalition programming. I am very pleased now to turn it over to Marion, who will give us details on how Columbus Public Health's Neighborhood Social Services is supporting violence intervention in our community. So Marion, it's all yours, and the clicker.
Thank you, Anita, and thank you so much, everyone, for having me this evening. I will start by discussing our Voice program, and I'm sure that Rec and Parks will also speak about this as well. But just to start us off, we have a Voice program, which stands for Violence, Outreach, and Community Engagement. And this is a partnership with Recon Parks and Grant Hospital. So this partnership started in March of 2021, and it provides intensive wraparound services to participants who are victims of violence at Grant Hospital. And they're referred by the hospital as well. So this includes making frequent contact, life skills support, and resource navigation. A social worker and an interventionist work together with participants through 4 phases of treatment, and that includes crisis intervention, stabilization, action, and self-sufficiency. So to date, we are extremely proud of our successes. So we've worked with 23 participants, and in the first year, no participants were re-victimized, and 65% obtained employment, 74% completed the trauma clinic follow-up, which is a really big deal in terms of completing their medical care. And we're looking forward to expanding to increase and have just be able to work with additional hospitals as well. All right, the next thing I'll briefly cover is the Landon Anti-Violence Team. And so part of our work with the CARE Coalition has been doing so much work after a homicide. So we connect a lot with families, and we wanted to create a program that would be preventative. And so starting in the summer, we're going to be starting to hire the Landon Anti-Violence Team. Hopefully summer and fall we'll be able to get this going. It'll be comprised of a program manager, 2 social workers, and 2 outreach workers. And it's really meant to be place-based, violence intervention and reduction, and also providing wraparound services, which we've heard a lot about today already. The team will work closely with various partners and definitely will rely on the power of relationships and provide immediate response and intervention when there's a risk for violence to occur. So we're again looking forward to that starting in the summer. As we've also already heard a bit about the reroute program, I think the biggest thing for us will be we're going to be expanding to include social workers on all sides of Columbus. This will include 16 staff, and that'll include community clinical counselors as well as outreach workers. And we're really leaning into having supervision, making sure we have quality supervision for all the teams. So these are high need, intensive cases. So it's really essential that there is support and we can work through vicarious trauma and we can have the right supervision for all of our new staff. So these outreach workers and staff will carry a caseload of young adults referred to us from our partners. And next, we have the Lock Saves Lives program. So this is a lockbox distribution. So part of this program is to distribute lockboxes directly in the community. This includes at events, community locations. Our goal is to just be able to protect youth and adults from accessing firearms. So in just 2 months alone, we welcomed a new community relations coordinator, and we were able to distribute 252 lockboxes since April of 2022. All right, so next are several upcoming initiatives that we're really excited about. The Resilience Organizers. Part of our work includes building programs that do really build community and really support healing through Resilience Organizers. A couple other programs I'll talk about next include Poindexter Village Healing Conversations, and then again, continuing the work of the CARE Coalition. But for this slide in particular, the Resilience Organizers, we're going to be utilizing a trauma-informed community development approach. It's actually something that we learned all about from Pittsburgh. So the Focus Pittsburgh model, the Neighborhood Resiliency Project, we've worked closely with Father Abernathy. But the goal is to build and develop block leadership. So it's one block at a time. The goal is to increase collective efficacy. So that basically means allowing residents to really lean into what they hope for on their block and really being able to help them take positive action and increase their ability to hope for change that's going to happen on their block. Resilience Organizers work intensively within the block based on the goals and wishes of the residents. So I would just really kind of underscore that. It's really based on the residents and what they want for their block specifically. So beginning this summer, we will have 4 paid resilience organizers. So again, it was really important to be able to pay resilience organizers for this work, and we'll also be able to train them. We'll have funding for block improvements and incidentals, as well as support for them. Again, the vicarious trauma support is something we're going to continue to make sure that we are on top of with them. Our next initiative is the Poindexter Village Healing Conversations. So we have worked pretty intensively with 4 residents of Poindexter Village. This is after there was multiple incidences of shootings and deaths that took place. So they'll be trained to offer healing debriefings, healing conversations after instances of trauma and violence in their community. The Poindexter Village Healing Conversations pilot will reinforce that there are definitely natural conveners and healers that are a part of every community, and it'll give them the skills and knowledge that they need to provide support to others by creating those safe spaces and connections to buffer the negative consequences of unresolved trauma and isolation. So really leaning in their ability to naturally bring people in and equipping them with the skills to provide healing conversations and refer to us or, request any additional support that they may need for their neighbors. And next, the Columbus Care Coalition. We've been in existence since around 2015. We have a network of around 500 partners since we began this work. Our team works diligently. There's a team of 7 that works diligently to support families after a homicide. We provide direct outreach, neighborhood canvases. We have a remembrance vigil coming up in September 15th of this year. We also have connected with around 181 families in 2021 after a homicide, as well as 293 community residents, and we were able to distribute resources to just over 2,000 homes in 2021. All right, the Violent Crime Review Group. Columbus Public Health is involved in the city's anti-violence response through the Violent Crime Review Group, which brings city partners together to create more awareness of our collective responses to violence. The Violent Crime Review Group, which operates in Landon, Hilltop, and Southside communities, also uses a rapid homicide notification system to alert partners of a homicide in the target area so we can coordinate the city's response, and this team actually meets monthly. Okay, so a few other new initiatives that we're, again, continue to be really excited about. The Life Sparks More Life Partnership. So this is a partnership with Columbus Public Health and several churches on different sides of Columbus with the goal of really embedding trauma services into the community. And so we're working really closely with pastors for this initiative, and they really provide access points and help us to really get therapeutic services and trauma support in the community. And then our next initiative is we are going to be offering diversified counseling. So just a need that has really emerged after the increase in homicides is to really be able to support families after a traumatic loss of life has taken place. So what we'll do is we will offer diversified counseling and we'll enhance services to address the cycle of violence after injury or loss of life. Neighborhood Social Services will be seeking proposals from agencies to provide 12 therapy sessions for 40 families free of charge after a homicide, and making sure, really leaning into this being culturally sensitive. And that could look a variety of different ways. It can include creative therapy mechanisms, but really leaning into the culturally sensitive piece. So overall, Columbus Public Health is proud to be a part of our city's efforts to build a strong, safe, and resilient community through violence prevention and intervention initiatives, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you both. Appreciate the robust discussion about your presentation on the programs that you provide, and thank you for that work. It's obviously an integral part of it, and you pioneered a lot of this work, that supportive work around violence. So we appreciate that. Council President, do you have anything?
Thank you, Ms. Marion, and thank you, Director. Just trying to understand the collaboration, the coordination. I get excited when you just listed off like 7 or 8 programs, a lot of them new, a lot of them doing work that truthfully the community has been begging for in terms of trauma-informed care, making sure that we're taking care of communities post interaction so that we decrease the opportunities for recurrence of violence. I truthfully still am struggling to understand how all of these programs from the different departments work together. So does your, Ms. Marion, would one of these programs, is it typical for, say, an urban league interventionist to send you a person, and then vice versa, or after you finish care with one of, not finish because I'm sure it's a spectrum and how we hand them off, how does that connect to another component of the city's strategy?
Yeah, so we do actually just received a text from an Urban League interventionist just earlier today. So we do communicate and get referrals, so we can definitely reach out to the families. I would say a lot of the coordination happens, we meet every Monday. So just connecting to meet and talk through cases and thinking about what we need to do in that way. And we're always communicating. So I would say, so sometimes formally, sometimes informally, but definitely communicating to see where we need to be. So a lot of communications happens outside of meetings as well.
Would you consider your Landon anti-violence team, or would you consider those intervention workers? Will those be intervention workers?
That's our goal.
Yeah. Do we have because I just wonder, and this is something that I don't think that other communities have answered very well yet. Do all of the folks that we consider or call intervention workers in the city of Columbus, that we identify and certainly that we fund, do they receive the same training? And that's not a you question. That's a global question for this hearing and for this conversation. Again, that's why, Grant, when you talked about that tracking, I get excited because, again, it puts us on, I think, the same platform to be able to talk and know that we are all providing the same service. So there really wasn't a question. It's just it is a question that I will be asking globally as we, and this is the thing about intervention work. It's never going to be perfect because we're mixing specific strategies with people work. And so my expectation is not perfection in this work, but to Director Speak's point, collaboration and coordination is expected across all of these different folks.
And President Hardin, both Dr. Kennedy's group as well as Progressive Possibilities, as we said, have provided recent training, and we are planning additional trainings for everyone so as to have a coordinated base from which to work from.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you once again, and we will now move on to our last organization to present, and certainly not least, I'll throw the floor to Director Bernita Reese in the Department of Recs and Parks.
Thank you, Chair Remy and President Hardin. As we speak today, just to go about the APPS program, APPS meaning applying for purpose and passion to service. What the APPS model consists of is job readiness, which works hand in hand with our interventionists, team programming, outreach, and intervention. As you see the components of our interventionist team, and that is the voice program, which we've heard about, and then reroute. As we look at the structure of what we currently have signed up for interventionists, it is assistant director. It's also a coordinator. That position is filled. Our assistant director is vacant currently. And then we have right now 3 interventionists. So currently we have 3 interventionists. We've been funded through the ARP funding for additional interventionists, which we will divide out. The model that you see here is in collaboration with the Care Coalition program. Their program is broken out geographically, regionally around the city. And so what we thought it would be important to do, and that is to assign our interventionists along with the Care Coalition, which is social work, so we actually create a team that's going out throughout the community. At this time, I will have Tanisha Calhoun, who will speak on interventionists.
So our intervention model, we are housed in Columbus Recreations and Parks Department, and we work closely with the Columbus Division of Police, Columbus Public Health, the Department of Neighborhoods, and other community partners. And that is so that we can provide a holistic approach to helping the families and the participants that we serve. So with our principles, we do crisis intervention response, which is getting the referrals from whether it be court, after a shooting, a vigil, or a funeral, from JACES workers. We do street and relentless outreach, that is constantly following up with participants even after we receive a referral, going out to the home. Court follow-up when we receive our morning dockets for lockup and non-lockup. Family and life intervention, which is what is intensive case management. So we have a Penelope system where we are able to track all of the participants that we are serving, the services that we are providing, and the assessments that we also do with those families. Then we have our post-violence outreach. So after a participant is released from our program, we still follow up with that participant for 30, 60, and 90 days just to make sure that they are supported, if they need additional services, and to make sure that they are reaching sustainability.
And I'll take this part. So this is usually how we get introduced to certain clients of ours or certain members of the community. So if a member of the community is a shooting victim, usually, as you've heard previous from our partners, with Division of Police, they meet with our administrative staff for the non-hospital interventionist. And we start to connect and collaborate there. Like officer stated, that we determine who is of access to our program as far as reroute goes. And as you see there, as you keep going through, we are able to do summaries. We're able to navigate through the individual as well as the community that they're involved in, the family, things like that, until we get to the point where we're able to do a first meeting with the individual, and we can meet this individual again in the community. Sometimes we meet, first meetings are in the court. Sometimes it's neutral locations due to the volatility of the situation and the at-risk. And then again, as we establish relationships with the individual, the second meeting should be there. And again, it's in their own house, own locations, neutral locations, sorry, and such as libraries or rec centers, so that we can establish rapport with the individual and keep going from there and seeing what needs that need to be met, or just the intervention or mediation towards a at-risk situation. And then I'll go to the voice, where I'm the sole interventionist right now in the Voice Project. That is, again, 18 to 40 years of age. We help victims of crime. And then you could follow through there. Usually we're referred through Grant Medical Center. Usually through the Trauma Recovery Clinic, we get referred. They assess there if the individual meets the criteria. Once they assess that and that the individual meets the criteria, we usually go out as a team, myself as the interventionist, as well as the social worker from Columbus Public Health. And then that's where we start our first meeting with them again, whether that's mediation, intervening on their behalf, or assessing their needs and wants and services for them to provide. Along with the second meeting, it's a voluntary program as well. So if we get allowed to do a second meeting, that's usually in the community, again, usually at the individual's home. And that's where we start really goal-oriented, focused, and figuring out what we can do to make sure, I always say, how can I assist you in your recovery as we keep going forward. And it's an incentive-based program, so we're helping pro-social behaviors, just to name a few. Like an individual may have employment options, applying for employment, interviewing, resume, obtaining employment. And those are all things that a person can be incentivized, as well as housing. Medical follow-ups are very important, and making sure we refer and link individual to counseling, such as trauma counseling, one-on-one counseling, and group counseling as well.
So our non-shooting victims are in our reroute program, and we receive those referrals from court, JACES, schools, community centers. They can self-refer. So if we are working with another participant and they may be in the same affiliation of gang or group that they hang with, they are allowed to say, hey, I see what you're doing with this person. Can I also be in this program as well? And we work with them that way. Once we receive the referral, they are assigned to an interventionist. So usually what happens is we get together As a team, whoever has that best established relationship, we assign that particular participant to that interventionist if they have the better established relationship or if they are known better on that side of town. We always go out to the initial home visit with more than one interventionist. We never do the first initial intake by ourselves. Then we would enroll the participant or the individual into our program. At that time, we have them complete paperwork saying that, yes, this is something that you want to do because, again, this program is voluntary. And with those individuals 14 to 18, we do have to get the parent consent. At that time, we will also do a risk assessment and a family assessment, and that is just to gauge what is it that this participant and this family needs in order to be successful, as well as their risk factors as far as if they've been shot, if they've had a friend that's been shot in the last 5 years, if they are affiliated with the gang, do they live in a hotspot area? So we have them do that assessment so we kind of know what we're working with this participant before we're really diving in and getting into the case management. Then we meet with, if they're on JASIS or if the adult participant is on probation, we usually meet with their probation officer or their JASIS worker, as well as any other social service agencies that they're working with, like Buckeye Ranch, if they were referred by Village Network, just to kind of get a framework of, what is this participant supposed to be following, making sure that they are complying. And then we create a case plan and SMART goals with this individual, and we work through their case plan. All of this information is entered into our Penelope system, so we're able to track how we're serving this participant. Every time we meet, what did we meet about, where did we meet, and track their progress. And then they also complete assessments 30, 60, and 90 days. So we can see where you were at when you came into this program, where you're at 30 days, where you're at 60 days. And we're just able to track all of that data. We help the participant with job readiness, so resume development, help them also with school. So with our younger participants, we assist with, do you need a tutor? Are you needing to complete certain classes in order to graduate? Do you need to transfer schools because you have, conflict with other participants at that school? And working with the mom to, the adult in their life to understand what would be the best options for them as well. This right here from September of 2020 to December of 2021, this is the data. This is the participants that we've helped, the areas in which we help them. So you can see each zip code, the client served in this area, and then their police zone. So this is our data from January to March of 2022. This shows each zip code, participants that we have served, and the police zoning area as well. So as of, these are getting related. So as of January to March of 2022, we have served 38 gang-related cases so far this year.
Yes, so as public health, Columbus Public Health mentioned with the Voice Project, right now there's 23 active voice cases. Again, I would like to highlight the 0 re-victimized stat there, as well as right now we have 43% of clients that are enrolled in trauma or mental health counseling services that we partner with throughout the Columbus community. And then 17 plus new reroute cases I want to add there, plus as we know the situations that are going on in our communities. And the number is growing, and we help with at-risk youth from the court systems, the schools, community agencies, children's services. We get referrals from all over the community, and we try to help and link and refer youth to other resources as well as we continue to grow. And then, as you see there, 13 assigned youth. And that was towards, I believe, the end of even 2020, but we were able to assign the youth to our job readiness program to make sure that they even got some mentorship, but also job readiness, putting some money in the pocket for youth, at-risk youth helps a long way sometimes. As we keep going, this year we're at 2022, we're at 7 and those numbers are continuing to grow as well, working in the community with at-risk youth and providing jobs and resources is something that we prioritize.
And for this number as well, these are just participants housed in our department in our job readiness program. This isn't including participants that we have found jobs at, KFC or Wendy's or, other community agencies, because we do also go out and find those partnerships because, depending on the severity or their risk factors, they may not be able to work in a community center or may not feel comfortable working in a community center. So we also make sure that we are finding them jobs that fit, their lifestyle and their availability.
So when we talk about outreach, our resource readiness program is a program where we provide anything from home items to utility bills to diapers for siblings, and it could be shelf-life food. There's a number of things that you do. It's difficult to try and reach someone when they have a need. However, if you're meeting the need of the one, it's easier for them to sit and listen and to try and listen to why we're trying to intervene within their life. The capacity, and I wanted to talk about Cap City Nights, and these are just some of our events that are going on this summer. Cap City Nights, as you see, there's 4 events, 2 in June and 2 in July. Within that, our staff, as well as our interventionists, they go out, and it's the We Care dates. And so what We Care consists of is going out throughout the community, passing out the information that we are hosting an event within that neighborhood. So we're really reaching out, trying to make sure everyone's there. It becomes a community involvement. The interventionists are there, as well as the children, or I don't want to say the children, the teens and the young adults that are in our job readiness program. And so they're all hitting the streets, making sure that they're passing out information. But then we also have We Care packets. What those packets consist of is still, once again, some shelf-life food and different items that families receive, and we take it to their doors, letting them know we have an event the very next day. The one thing you heard me talk about, and that was earlier, what does our future look like? And so our future is really progressive. We are right now right at our beginning stage of interviewing for interventionists. So I do know last week we had 22 applications that we pulled offline. And so we had 112 hits. Out of that, 22 people applied or that we saw had a background to work as an interventionist. Currently, as stated earlier, we have 3 interventionists. Out of those interventionists is more than 100 years of working within the juvenile or correction system. So we're looking at people who have that background that can really make an effort and an approach of how to talk to people and how to really intervene in one's life. And then next, what we have is it should be 2,000, okay, we're on there. Okay, 2,000, that's containing the resources that went from door to door in 2021. That's with the We Care program. And so as we will begin in 2022, you'll see more of that. And then some of our Safe Summer initiatives, and that's late night basketball being at 10 of our community centers. Also within that, we have our summer experience that we're partnering with the City of Columbus school system, and that is going into Wedgwood community and doing a teen program, and that is Monday through Friday. So there's some other initiatives that we have. If you're interested, we do have a website. You're more than welcome to go to our website. It talks about all of our programming, as well as the Interventionist program. All of that information is on there. And so I would be free to answer any questions at this point in time.
Well, thank you again for a robust presentation. I got to pull back a little bit because I can't see you over there. But certainly appreciate the programming that you're doing. You kind of stole my question because I was going to ask, where are you at in the hiring process for these interventionists? I will give you the opportunity to talk about what pools are opening up this week And then also, the employment opportunities that exist for our youth, which I think just are part and parcel to trying to, again, go back to what we did last week with funding and also just in general. Like, there are job opportunities that kids can take up over the summer that we're always looking for people. And I'm glad to hear there was that many applications for interventionists, but we all know that things are very competitive right now, and so Wrexham Parks is a great employer as well.
Thank you. We actually, last year in 2021, there were a total of 138 young people in the job readiness program. This year, we are currently at 142. We're trying to increase that number, so yes, we do have some positions to 175, and that's our maximum that we can take. But we're always willing to try and create opportunities for our young people.
Council President.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director, and thank you to the specialists. I really did get excited about your presentation. Very excited about Cap City Nights. I'm glad that we're still doing those community-based, community-forward events. Ms. Cowan, I heard you talk about your tracking system. It's called Penelope. Is Penelope the tracking system also that, Mr. Ain, are we talking about the same tracking system? Does that go across?
So yes, the system that the interventionists that Parks and Recs is using is the Penelope system. I am not familiar with what tracking system other agencies are using.
So when we started to look at this issue, we have different tracking systems for each organization. We're trying to work through navigating and getting everybody on the same. We've looked at Penelope. There's a separate system that are outreach workers from different organizations that are using. So figuring out how to tie everybody together is certainly a project that we're continuing to work on and developing that synergy. But as of right now, that was something that as we're getting the GVI program started, we're looking at the landscape of what everyone's doing and how everybody is managing these type of things. And yes, we have separate systems right now, but hopefully we're moving toward having everybody on the same system and collecting all that information in the same place.
Certainly. I just think, again, it goes back to the coordination, collaboration across departments and even external, as we have external partners. So I look forward to hearing more about that.
President Harden, I would like to mention that Columbus Public Health is going to plan to move forward on Penelope as well. We think that we can tie our information in with Rec and Parks, and we think that's so very important. We saw a demonstration, and it really fits in and ties very well with all our programming, so we'll have that same data available to us.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. It's good to hear that there's even more collaboration on the technology side of things as well. So thank you to all of you for a really robust and great conversation through your presentations. Do have a couple of speakers this evening that I'd like to invite up. First up is Mary Counter. Mary, are you here? Come up, I'd ask you to state your name, your address, and any organization that you may represent, and let you know that you have 3 minutes. So as soon as you get up and get yourself placed, we'll get you going. Appreciate you coming down tonight.
Yes, sitting on those antique benches back there is quite the challenge. I want to thank you so very much for this opportunity to have some things revealed. I wasn't really sure what was going to happen with this kind of hearing, but I'm pretty excited. But I am here today representing the BREAD organization, Stop Violence, Build Trust Committee. My name is Mary Counter, and I live at 1070 Oberlin Drive in Columbus. So I want to begin my testimony, though, today with a story, because there's been so much racism and division and in our police department. Just a couple of months ago, I saw a video of somebody that was following an incident where a Black Columbus credible messenger experienced disrespect in a high-anxiety, tense, and traumatic barricade situation. The police appeared to treat the credible messenger as though he was the problem. Not that the man who was barricaded inside the house. Credible violence intervention has been this man's life work since leaving federal prison, and he was or should be known to the police. The fact that the intervener was treated as a problem is a sign of the dysfunction in our police department. Many of you are acquainted with him, and some call him friend. He is much respected by those of us who know the community impact he's had. In the end, the police thankfully allowed the messenger to intervene and talk the man out of the house. The suspect was arrested instead of becoming another black man who was killed by Columbus police. But the initial response by the police to the messenger shows the dysfunction. My belief is that there's a great need for reconciliation between the police and black community. And you don't need to be a statistician to know that there are too many deaths here in Columbus. It was a year ago in early June that I participated in Group Violence Intervention University. My work on this problem at BRED and with public safety, the courts, the U.S. Attorney, and the multitudes of other organizations trying to keep people safe, alive, and free has consumed 7 years of my life. As a committed community member, BRED has established a relationship with Columbus Public Safety and with the police. BRED wants the city to execute the GVI strategy with fidelity, and I can see some steps going in that direction. Unfortunately, though, all of our eyes to keep our eyes on the prize of strategic intervention with a group of partners seems to have progressed at a snail's pace. Our community cannot wait. We recognize that there's been a rocky start with personnel and Safety Director Clark's arrival less than a year ago, putting a lot of pressure on him. Nevertheless, we on the Stop Violence Build Trust Director, Build Trust Committee, we believe Director Clark is ready to work with us. We know that the work is complex, as we saw tonight, for the many moving parts, including trying to coordinate activities with the 46 attendees who are at the Group Violence Intervention University. BRED has a responsibility, though, to 44 faith-based congregations. We want an oversight role, and we want a timeline that ensures GVI implementation with fidelity. The city has committed over $500,000 just to GVI, and the clock continues to tick. We do not want the money wasted. We want to see lives saved now. Now, do you have any questions for me?
Thank you very much, Ms. Counter. We appreciate your advocacy and certainly the BRED organization's work within our community.
Any questions? Council President Harden?
Thank you so much.
No, we're all set? Okay, thank you.
Our next speaker this evening is Jarrell Everson. Mr. Everson, welcome to council. Just a reminder to state your name, your address. A reminder to state your name, your address, and any organization you may represent, and that you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Jarrell Everson. My address is 3818 Carbonet Court. The organization I represent is Humanity. So I would like to say hi to you guys, hi to everybody behind me. The main cause of violence is knowledge. Knowledge is always within the shadow of ignorance. It's never complete. Knowledge has never solved anything. It's just creating more problems. Business creates the problems. Business is trained, conditioning to solving the problems. Business thinks it's like if it's going to solve a problem, it just creates a problem. So business just creates problems. Same like something like Ohio State University would create problems and train, condition to solve problems. So schools, organizations, businesses always cause rape, death to the mind, fragility. It's just, business always going to cause problems. Business is thought. Thought creates the problems. Thought, train, condition to solving the problems. Do anybody don't understand? You understand what I'm saying, right? So anybody have any questions or?
No. Are you complete? Because I want to make sure that I give you the full 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah. So without understanding knowledge, self-knowledge, somebody just no love. They're always going to be reaching for false sense of security. That's what business provides, false sense of security. And that's basically it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. And that concludes. So I would like to ask Council President Harden if you have any final thoughts.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for, again, convening this hearing. I want to, I'm thinking about takeaways from the hearing. One that is clear to me, and I think both our residents and certainly us as elected officials should be proud that the City of Columbus takes intervention work seriously. There is a lot of good work, certainly a lot of dollars going towards this work across departments. And I think that when we, as a community, when we're facing years like we've had in the last couple of years with violence, knowing that we are, that we have a multi-pronged, data-driven strategy to intervention work is good. It's really good, and I'm excited about that. So that's one of my takeaways, and I think that the community should feel comfortable with the amount of work that is being done in this space, and I mean that. I also, and I think that we did not, and I did not, from this dais, pause or slow down to highlight what it is like to be an intervention worker, or and to do this work. Just like some of our officers, maybe not to the same extent, it is dangerous work. It can be dangerous work. In most cases, when done right, it can be traumatic work for those who do it. Those intervention workers, when done right, when engaging with the individuals that we're talking about, are putting their proximity to so much pain and real trauma, and their necessity to get a person on the right path can be very difficult. So I do want to slow it down to say thank you to all of the intervention workers that are out there that are doing this work. It is important work. The city believes in the work. That's why council continues to fund this work, because we know it is having impact. And when you're talking about going into the hospitals after violence that's happened, we're talking about people seeing people in pain, families in pain, interrupting pain. And so we are grateful for that work. I will say, though, that I think that we need more coordination. It should be our stated goals throughout the departments to have more coordination, more collaboration, and to be able to tell a more unified story of how we all work together. Again, from each department, everybody, and I know the work is happening, and I trust that good work is happening, but how we work together and then how we report up so that we know, for instance, exactly how many intervention workers we have internally and externally, so that we can track these things, so that I know as a funder to these programs when we need more. Because we believe in this, and we believe in its ability to have real impact in safety. And so I look forward to working with all the departments, to hearing back from, I'll send some questions over, and look forward to some more specific feedback. But we wish you safety and success this summer. All of you who are employing these tactics in the GVI, as it really gets going this summer, we look forward to being very close and hearing more about its engagement to folks. So again, thank you for this hearing. Thank you, Chair, for pulling us together.
Thank you very much, Council President Harden. I echo his sentiments. I want to thank all of you that presented this evening. We certainly appreciate your work in this space. And I do want to echo, I may have seemed a little heated when I talked about a website and that sort of thing, because going back to his point, we need to be able to tell the story. And the story is that there's a lot of good collaborative work being done here. We can do more, but I'm encouraged because this is the most collaboration I've seen since I've been sitting here on council. So I am entirely encouraged about it, but we also got to be able to tell the story, not just on a hearing night. And so I just challenge you guys to get together and work on, like, put that presentation that you gave up front, put that together, like let's have a resource for the community to understand the work that's being done in the collaborative ways and nature that it's being done, and of course, tighten it up as we move along. But thank you again for the time this evening. Thank you for sharing the work, and we know it's daunting and there's a lot of it out there, but we certainly are here to support and find the ways to make it work smoothly, more smoothly from our perspective. I want to finish out tonight by thanking our team that helped put all this together, because it certainly wasn't myself alone and Council President alone. I want to thank Zach Davidson, Linda Copa-Bianco, my team, Jeffrey Carter and Lucy Frank, our Legislative Research Office, team members John Oswald and Matt Erickson, Naya Hairston, and David Kibbe in Communications, and the entire CTV team for their assistance in making sure that this committee hearing took place tonight. I'm satisfied and thankful for the presentation, so I want to wish everybody a very safe evening and into the summer, and wish everybody well. Thank you.